There's more space for microphones than my remarks. Well, good afternoon. I'm James Knowles, Mayor of the City of Ferguson. Yesterday, Ferguson City Manager John Shaw, Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson, and Ferguson City Attorney Stephanie Carr, along with myself, met with the Department of Justice officials in downtown St. Louis to receive the final report of their investigation into the policies and practices of the City of Ferguson Police Department. The 100-page document outlined 5 specific areas of concern in which the Ferguson Police Department engaged in a pattern or practice of unlawful conduct that violates the United States Constitution and federal law. The Department of Justice began their investigation of the Ferguson Police Department on September 4, 2014. During the past 6 months, city officials have cooperated with the Department of Justice to supply tens of thousands of documents, which included thousands of emails from 75 employees of the City of Ferguson and other electronic materials from the Ferguson Police Department. The city also arranged ride-alongs for Department of Justice investigators to observe Ferguson police officers while on duty. During the meeting on Tuesday, Department of Justice officials informed the City of Ferguson that a review of city emails uncovered explicit racial bias by 3 individuals who are employed by the City of Ferguson Police Department. Let me be clear. This type of behavior will not be tolerated in the Ferguson Police Department or in any department of the City of Ferguson. Immediately upon leaving that meeting, the 3 individuals were placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. 1 has since been terminated, and the other 2 are still awaiting the outcome of an internal investigation. These actions taken by these individuals are in no way representative of the employees of the City of Ferguson. But today's report allows the City of Ferguson to identify the problems not only in our police department, but in the entire St. Louis region. We must do better, not only as a city, but as a state and a country. We must all work to address issues of racial disparity in all aspects of society. As mentioned by the Department of Justice, there are several initiatives that are already taking place in the City of Ferguson and in the Ferguson Police Department. They are as follows. The Ferguson Police Department is in the process of hiring 3 new officers. We hope to have an update on these positions and the racial makeup of these new hires sometime in the next week. The Ferguson Police Department has hired 1 correction officer since August 9th of 2014. 1 African-American female candidate was hired for that position out of a pool of approximately 91 applicants. The Ferguson Police Department has also hired 2 assistant court clerks since August 9th of 2014. Both positions were filled by African-American females from a pool of 64 applicants. All Ferguson Police Department officers have completed mandatory diversity training as of December 31st, 2014. The Ferguson Police Department has also begun an Explorer program in the Ferguson-Florissant School District beginning in January of 2015. The goal of this program is for officers to engage youth in the law enforcement profession, as well as potentially recruit them for police officer positions in the future. I've also convened a task force made up of residents, businesses, and law enforcement to create a civilian oversight board that will review complaints and provide citizen input into the policies and procedures of the Ferguson Police Department. The task force meets weekly, and its efforts are already underway. This groundbreaking initiative will be one of the first of its kind in this region. Lastly, the City of Ferguson has retained the services of an independent consultant recommended by the Department of Justice to conduct a patrol staffing and deployment study. Finally, I would like to speak briefly about our efforts to reform the Ferguson Municipal Court. The City of Ferguson has acted in August and in September of 2014 to implement several additional reforms and programs. The City of Ferguson was the first community in this region to undertake such steps. In September 2014, the Ferguson City Council repealed several provisions of the municipal code relating to fees, such as an administrative fee of the police department when overseeing the release of a towed vehicle or on the recall of a warrant upon request. In addition, there is no longer a specific offense for failing to appear, which would eliminate certain additional fees and court costs for individuals in the court system. Pending charges of failing to appear, which were issued prior to the reforms taking place, are being dismissed as they come before the municipal court. Finally, the municipal court judge has also implemented new procedures and programs. A new docket was established specifically for those who are having trouble paying fines. A defendant may appear and speak to the judge and/or prosecutor about different payment plans or potential alternative sentencing. The city has also passed an ordinance in September of 2014 to cap municipal court revenues at 15% of the city's overall budget. This is half of the legal limit allowed under state of Missouri law. This ordinance has also specified that any excess municipal court revenue will be appropriated for community projects. These are just some of the initiatives that the city of Ferguson has taken and will continue to take moving forward to hopefully move this city, its residents, and our entire community forward. Thank you.
Mayor, do you intend to sign the consent decree?
Mayor? Will Chief Jackson stay? Is Chief Jackson staying?
All right, so there you hear it. The mayor of Ferguson, James Knowles, making a statement, not answering reporters' questions. The police chief, Tom Jackson, not available, not attending this statement that we just saw. Let's get immediate reaction. Daryl Parks is the attorney representing Michael Brown's family. What did you think, Daryl?
Well, without question, we obviously saw that there wasn't a change in the leadership of the police department. Although I was hopeful, no mention of the loss of Michael Brown's life or any apology. And so I hope that the things that he talked about will do it. I don't know if it fully addresses the magnitude of the problem there in Ferguson, but that's something we'll have to go through an analysis to determine, based upon what's in the report and the things that he talked about, to what length it goes to really make real change there. At a minimum, though, we hope and pray that things will get better for citizens who live there. And Michael Brown has many relatives who live within that area, and certainly some of the things that he mentioned could have a direct effect upon them. So all we can do is hope that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. But most importantly, Wolf, I hope the Department of Justice will stay steadfastly involved in seeing that these changes are going forward, and go to the extent of suggesting other things that they believe would be helpful to this department.
All right, let's bring in the community activist, John Gaskin. You heard the mayor say at least one individual has now been terminated, 2 others they've been suspended, at least for the time being, for those racist emails. Your reaction, John?
Honestly, Wolf, I kept listening for one thing, and that was the resignation of Chief Jackson. And to be quite honest with you, it wouldn't even hurt for James Knowles to resign. For those type of blunders to take place under your leadership, those type of pervasive blunders, is sickening, and it should not be tolerated. And someone needs to take accountability for what has taken place. So to hear that Chief Jackson is not going to step down, or has not stepped down after these findings, is disappointing. I will say this, Wolf. I encourage the activists within the community, the people that live in that community, to continue to seek justice and reforms and not revenge, and to continue to do it in a dignified way that they have continued to do this entire time.
We just received a statement from the governor of Missouri, Governor Nixon, who says, among other things, he said, facts exposed in the Department of Justice's report on the Ferguson Police Department are deeply disturbing and demonstrate the urgent need for the reforms I have called for, some of which the General Assembly is now considering, including reforms to municipal courts. Discrimination has no place in our justice system and no place in a democratic society. Sonny Hostin, what's your reaction to what the governor has said and what we heard from the mayor of Ferguson?
Well, I think what we heard from the mayor of Ferguson, quite frankly, was woefully inadequate. I mean, to not take questions and to say that 3 individuals have been placed on administrative leave, and that there'll be there's some diversity training, and that there's going to be this task force established, calling that groundbreaking, which is not groundbreaking at all. There are police oversight, civilian police oversight boards all over our country. I think was just woefully inadequate. I wanted to hear a real acceptance of the Justice Department's findings. I wanted to hear an apology to the citizens of Ferguson. And remember, Mayor Knowles was the same mayor when I was in Ferguson that made several statements about how there was no problem in Ferguson, no racial disparity, no racial bias on his watch. And so I would echo what Mr. Gaskin said. I mean, I would have expected a resignation from this mayor. I expect a resignation from Chief Jackson. And I think that a change in leadership at this point, an acceptance of all of the recommendations is what would be acceptable given the dense, scathing report from the Department of Justice. This was woefully inadequate.
Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time believing the police chief, Tom Jackson, is still the police chief of Ferguson, Missouri, given everything that has happened there. Let's get the reaction of Tom Fuentes, our law enforcement analyst.
Well, I would agree that I think that it was much less than we expected. We were looking for more changes. And, you know, we don't know who these three are. Are they patrol officers with no accountability of sergeants, lieutenants, captains, the chief himself, or others? So that's important. And the other, I'd like to make a comment about, you know, we've gotten the Darren Wilson non-charges intermingled or interwoven with this practice and pattern of the department. And I'd like to say that one of the things that struck me in the report by DOJ as to why they weren't charging them, they talk about witnesses who changed their statements, made one public statement to the media, but behind closed doors with the FBI, recanted and said something else. And in their report, they say there were credible accounts that Brown was moving toward Wilson at the time Wilson fired upon him. That is critical to this because it takes out the story that Michael Brown only was standing still, hands in the air, surrender position, that he was gunned down. And you have witnesses that said he was not only moving toward Wilson, Wilson was actually backpedaling when he fired the fatal shots. I think that should be brought out.
Jeffrey, so the grand jury didn't file charges, the Department of Justice, Attorney General, no charges, but we heard from Darrell Parks, the attorney for the Michael Brown family. They're still planning a civil lawsuit against Darren Wilson and presumably the city or the police force.
Yeah, and you know what they're going to need? They're going to need a great big armored car to get all the money that they are going to get from the city of Ferguson because their behavior throughout has been appalling. You know, that was a pitiful appearance by the mayor. You read this report and one officer loses his job. You know, you translate the bureaucratic gobbledygook of the mayor. That's all that happened there. And, you know, this civil lawsuit is going to cost the taxpayers an enormous amount of money because, you know, Tom, your view of what happened, you know, yes, he was moving towards, perhaps he was moving towards Darren Wilson. That doesn't mean he should have been shot. I mean, that's a very different decision.
No, but what I disagree with, we've got both these reports coming out simultaneously, both decisions being announced simultaneously, and the criminal investigation of Wilson is a completely different, with a different standard of justice.
We're going to continue our coverage, obviously. Important news coming in, a very damning report from the Justice Department. You heard the reaction from the mayor of Ferguson. You heard it live.